Welcome to the numerical tarot. A new tarot paradigm. An alternative to tradition. An axial system of archetypal crystallography. A transculturally anthropomorphized, life-biased binary influence calculator. A wisdom system and archetype enhancer with harmony of interpretation throughout. The content of all the videos in this series are excerpts, edits and brief summaries from the eBooks All Things Are Numbers and All Things Are Patterns, links below. For a more complete explanation of each idea, additional reading might be helpful. Hopefully the basic ideas come across enough to pique your interest in trying this alternative approach to tarot. Also, in these videos, the voices are not mine, but are artificially generated. Some of the illustrations from the various tarot decks are also generated by artificial intelligence. But all of the content and ideas are mine. None of this is conceived or written by artificial intelligence. It's all from a human mind at work. In the last video, I introduced the first 11, 22, 44, 66 tarot deck. I mentioned how I illustrated that deck using artificial intelligence art creation programs. And I also promised to make many more decks with this 11, 22, 44, 66 design. In this video I will present some of those decks. I have several more decks ready to make into new decks, but are not quite ready to publish at this point in time. So this video will only present the ones that are available for purchase right now. Links below. The first Tarot 66 deck had mostly realistic images, although done in a painterly fashion. Many of them looked like images from ages past. Being created by artificial intelligence when it was just being developed, it required a lot of retouching and compositing. It was also difficult to achieve consistency of appearance, such that it might look like the deck was illustrated by one person. But overall, I think it came out pretty good. The second edition of Tarot 66 went a different way, with a slightly more cartoonish look. Some of the images are still realistic, but many are less so. As I pointed out in the previous video, getting a consistent look out of these AI generators was not easy. Things have improved since I made this deck, back in the summer of 2022, when these AI art generators were still in their infancy. So I did the best I could. In this deck I also included the line-drawn insets from the last 72-card numerical tarot deck that I had published, before changing to this 66-card layout. In the third edition of Tarot 66, I decided to use a pencil sketch approach to my prompts and turn the monochrome pencil sketches into red and blue to differentiate between the two positive versus negative suits. I also decided to include insets. The insets are all in purple, halfway between red and blue. They are not the same line-drawn insets as just mentioned in the second edition, they are all detailed pencil sketches as well. They are not exactly the same as previous insets, because getting AI to give me what I ask for just doesn't always work. In the fourth edition of Tarot 66, I decided to try a watercolor approach. This deck also has insets. The images are mostly realistic in appearance even though they are kind of sketchy. In the fifth edition of Tarot 66, I decided to indulge in a particular genre of art that I like, bronze statues or statuettes. This deck doesn't have any illustrations for the minor pips, other than a different bronze frame around each grouping. The main focus is on the major influencers and the court cards. Behind each major influencer is their corresponding funnel tunnel maze sigil. The contrast between the positive and negative is much more subtle in this deck. For the sixth edition of Tarot 66, I decided to go a wildly different direction and create an entirely creepy-looking deck. For those with a dark and haunted personality, this deck might help define someone's shadow self. Even the good positive cards look kind of spooky in this deck, while, at the same time, remaining true to the underlying design that gives them all their individual character. In this deck the minor pips do not have the same illustrations as previous decks. The character or essence of each minor pip is represented by a single object. Similar to the insets of previous decks, except in this case, they become full illustrations. The seventh edition of Tarot 66 is probably my favorite so far. Some of the yet-to-be-published decks, mentioned earlier, might replace this as my favorite. But for now, this one is pretty great. Like the previous 6th edition, the minor pips are illustrated with objects rather than scenes with humans. I kind of like this approach because of how it visually differentiates the major influencers and court cards from the minor pips when using the cards in a reading. The illustrations are all very realistic looking, with a dreamy kind of touch to them. In the 8th edition of Tarot 66, I went for a look like that of old etchings of the past. This was only done for the major influencers and court cards. For the minor pips I used a more painterly seasonal landscape, spring for addition diamond coin, summer for multiplication heart cup, autumn for subtraction club stave and winter for division spade sword. Some of these illustrations are just landscapes, while others contain objects in the landscape that suggest what the essence of the card actually is. These are all the numerical Tarot 66 decks that I've published so far. Links below, if you wish to purchase any of them. Please do, if you like these videos and my alternative paradigm. And as always, if you are an artist and would like to collaborate on a Tarot 66 deck, don't hesitate to contact me. AI art is great, but as mentioned in the previous video, it has limits on how much detail it is able to produce from elaborate prompts. I would still love to create a deck that has all the detail I would want. There are so many subtle intentions in my earlier decks, drawn by me and my artistic mother, including poses, costumes, props, backgrounds, they all have potential to communicate numerical essence. A human is needed to really perfect those parameters. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope it all made sense. Links to eBooks, decks and merchandise below. And, if anyone is interested in drawing a deck based on this system of organization, don't hesitate to contact me for a collaboration.